Thank you, Sam. Hello, everyone. My name is Smita and I am Principal Technical Analyst here at BMC. I'm currently part of onboarding technical team supporting Helix SaaS customers. In today's session, I'm going to talk about BMC Helix Data Manager's best practices. In today's session, we're going to cover a high-level overview on HDM Tool offering. We'll discuss the fundamentals and recommendation on using the migration packs. We'll also review the best practices on different tasks you'll perform during the migration project. In the end, we'll review the pre-migration checklist followed by some references. BMC Helix Data Manager is a utility designed to assist administrator in data migration into a new system. It offers speed and reliable data migration features, enabling rapid upgrade to the latest version of supported BMC product. It also facilitates seamless cloud migration and ITSM management as a service. BMC Helix Data Manager capabilities work directly at the database tier, which results in fast transformation. The tool also supports migration for BMC products such as ITSM, Smart IT, Digital Workplace using pre-configured migration pack. Another capability the tools offer is identifying customization and differences in the data model between the two systems. Some of the common use cases BMC Helix Data Manager offer is to migrate an on-premise environment to Helix. Another one is to perform an upgrade data migration for BMC Helix ITSM by using the stage upgrade methodology. This upgrade involves migrating all data from BMC Helix ITSM to a new installation of the latest ITSM server. Now let's look at some of the fundamentals of the migration pack. The migration pack consists of mapping and transformation for out-of-the-box forms and fields, which is made available between each supported version for you to consume and migrate data. There are pre-configured templates that supports migration for BMC products such as ITSM, Smart ID, DWP. You may have to modify this package according to your need of your project. The migration pack is linked to a particular source and target data dictionary so that you can migrate the data between any two systems that are linked to these data dictionaries. A key note to remind here is migration pack migrates only data and not the actual forms. So you will have to ensure all overlays and custom objects at form, field, view, or workflow level are exported, imported, and created in your target system. Migration pack includes three components. The first one is migration pack template. The migration pack templates offer various export and import templates tailored to different migration scenarios. This gives you a flexibility to use a runtime template within a single migration pack. Our full feature templates, that is a flat migration pack, contains global and environmental data in a single pack. You will have to run each individually. Our workflow migration utility packs, which are available from 2002.1 onwards, have global and environmental data merged but have different sets specific for CMDB. You will see more details on the workflow migration utility little later in our session. Migration pack. Any updates that's done to the migration pack, you can validate what forms in the migration tree are enabled or disabled, and if any data filtering is applied. Using the runtime templates, you can also perform incremental data migration. Next component is migration set. You can migrate any related set of data between the source and target system. These relationships are defined in a tree structure that is fully configurable. Each node in this tree structure represents a form mapping. Our last component is data mapping. So for each form that is migrated, HDM identifies the correct target form in the target data dictionary and then automatically maps all the field and applies appropriate data transformation based on the configuration of the template you're using. Now, based upon the configuration, it will attempt to auto map the fields and will display any errors related to those fields. Now let's discuss some of the common reasons why there could be data mapping issues. One of the most common data mapping issue can occur when your customization or your custom objects are not migrated to the target system, or the data dictionary which is associated to the migration pack, it does not include the required customization. Another common reason is field mapping differences between source and target based upon the data model version. So, like for example, the new fields on the form in target which are not available in source. Here are the list of different field mapping status and how you can handle these errors. Let's look at few of these status. Target field not mapped. Now this will occur when there is no corresponding field available in source, and for such status you can either decide to generate new field mapping or confirm if this can be ignored if not required. The next one is target field required. This status confirms the target field is defined as required, but the source field is defined as optional. You can decide either to handle the null or set it to default. Another one is enum warning. This will occur when HDM mapped all the source and target enums for the specific field by using the enum ID, but there is a mismatch in the enum text in one or more values. To conclude on the migration pack fundamentals, here are some recommendations to consider in your migration project. The supported migration version are not dependent on the version of the HDM tool. For example, you can use the HDM version 21305 to perform a DWP migration to version 2002.1 or later. To avoid version mismatch issues, use the same version of migration pack on the source and target system. It's recommended to always keep a copy of original out-of-the-box migration pack to validate what's included in it so that you can compare it with the changes you introduce for your needs. The migration pack which you are using should be in published status in order to utilize them. By default, they are always in draft status. Regarding customization, make sure you properly migrate your customization and custom object to the target system to avoid data mapping issues. This needs to be taken care before you run the data dictionary. One of the recommendations regarding CMDB is if you have your CMDB in the source system, which has extended custom attributes or custom classes, then these must be re-implemented in the target system. You can use tools and processes like Workflow Migration Utility or Deploy Manager Console. We will discuss more on this as we move forward. Lastly, you should always run form count analysis. It is recommended to run a form count analysis post data import to ensure that the pack is correctly constructed. This will help you avoid issues such as data loss or missed forms. Now let's turn our attention to application-specific migration pack and what are the list of recommendations for pre and post migration stage. ITSM is always going to be the first application to migrate data from source to target. In our migration pack, we saw how we have environment, flat, and workflow migration utility packs which are made available. Now, based upon the version of your target, we always recommend to use the flat migration pack to migrate all the data. Before performing the data import on target, make sure to run the clear down scripts which will help to delete any sample data on the target system. Next is the export ID option, which is available when you are migrating data from a source ITSM system to a target. This next ID processing was earlier available through post-migration script, but from 21.03.05 version, it's no longer required if you select the Export Next ID option. Lastly, it's recommended to chunk large form data. These chunks must be a minimal of 500,000 records, and the main reason you will use the data chunking so that it will help you reduce the database load when exporting large tables. Now, as part of post-migration, we recommend performing the standard post-migration steps and run the data update scripts. You will also update the server references so that any server references from source will be replaced with the target server. You will also perform form count analysis so you can obtain the number of records in your source and target system prior to performing any migration. This will help so that you can use the data to reconcile the number of records migrated and validate the migration pack. Another important check is to stop and shut down the AR server with admin only mode enabled so that post migration when you will start the AR server it will start in admin only mode. Our last few steps involve building your approval and SLA including your entitlements and lastly the FTS reindex. This is recommended step to be executed after ITSM data migration so that your global and FTS search works fine. You can always review the mentioned documentation on completing post-migration steps for additional details. Here is an example on how the ITSM packs are available on the mentioned FTP location. Here you will find the migration packs along with the data update script. Here is another example of workflow migration utility pack available on FTP for version 22.1. Our next application is Smart IT. For Smart IT, you will need to use the template upgrade Smart IT forms 1805 and above to 21.3 and 22.1 as supported migration pack. You need to make sure to always run the clear down script dedicated to Smart IT application. For Smart IT, you will disable the triggers, which is an important option. When you migrate the Smart ID data, the forms are migrated with no sequence and the qualification in the dependent forms may give an error. To avoid this, use a property to disable the qualification for a successful migration. Like ITSM, for Smart IT, you will run the data update script, form count analysis, and post migration script. You will also need to enable these triggers back post data migration is completed. Lastly, FTS reindex is recommended post Smart IT migration as well. For any additional details on Smart IT migration step, please review the documentation on migrating Smart IT data. Here is the example of FTP location of the Smart IT migration pack. Our next application is Smart Reporting. The last version for Smart Reporting is 21.05, and this is compatible with ITSM 21.3 and 22.x. For Smart Reporting, we have dedicated migration pack based on the source and target database type. You will run the pre-migration script for Smart Reporting only if you are migrating to version 21.3. Lastly, the Delta data is not needed for Smart Reporting. Instead, you will run the full data migration itself. The post-migration items for Smart Reporting are similar to ITSM with an additional to validate and update centralized configuration parameter setting for the following values. Our last application is Digital Workplace. For Digital Workplace Catalog, it's very important to note the system and database configuration requirement. You will need to register the source system type as DWPC and target system type as remedy. Whereas you will specify the catalog logical database name as catalog and the tenant logical database name as tenant. You also need to know the migration pack name used for the Delta data migration, which is template DWPC migration pack. The template DWPC process migration pack does not support Delta data. Lastly, the clear down script is not a required step for DWPC as you have already ran the ITSM clear down scripts. For additional details, you can please review the Migrating BMC Helix Digital Workplace Catalog Data documentation. Here is the example of detailed list of migration packs related to DWPC available on FTP. Now let's look at some of the best practices on different tasks you will perform during the migration project. Our first operation is on system configuration for all applications. Let's look at this in a quick demo. While registering the source and target system, always review the mentioned ARS version. Now, if the version you're looking for is not available in the list, then you will select the closest version for AR. Always verify the source and target system are ready for data migration. If not, then you are missing the data integration step. Also verify the type which is specific for dedicated application like Smart IT or DWPC. To confirm you have successful file system configuration, for data flow, always test write and read data to ensure it's successful. Lastly, it's recommended to perform test database connectivity before starting any migration task. Now that you have registered your source and target system along with file system setup, let's review on data discovery operation. Discovery is a process by which HDM grants information from the AR system data dictionary, which helps you to perform accurate data migration between the two systems. It holds the metadata for AR system application, and the HDM engine runs the data discovery job to create a snapshot of your source and target system. Let's look at some best practices on handling the data discovery in a demo. You need to ensure to provide distinct names for discovered data dictionary in both source and target system to avoid any confusion. Based on the application version, always review if correct ARS version is selected when registering source and target system. This will avoid failure in reading data dictionary issues. When registering Smart IT or DWPC system configuration, make sure to use correct schema and logical name. This will help to avoid any issues with data dictionary which is failing to read the metadata. To confirm if data dictionary is valid, always review the list of forms and fields tab. You will always need to run the data discovery when changes impact the data model. Example, adding, removing, or changing fields in the form or post adding any custom object. Lastly, when working on the migration pack, always make sure to use the latest and updated data dictionary. Now let's look at some of the recommended tools and methods which you will use to migrate custom and overlaid AR and CMDB objects. Our first tool is Workflow Migration Utility. This utility is used to migrate custom or overlaid AR object from the source to the target AR system. It also compares the source and target system to identify and migrate any differences in CMDB classes and attributes. After the CMDB classes and attributes are migrated, the tool will also rebuild the join or views for your asset form by triggering the Asset UI Sync utility. Lastly, it also performs auto-reconciliation of overlays and provides an output file which you can use for manual three-way reconciliation. We recommend that you take a database backup as a restore point before running the utility. Here are the steps involved in running the workflow migration utility. The utility offers two modes for object migration. The first is step mode, where it will execute one step at a time. It will stop the execution, and after completion of current step, you will need to rerun the utility again with the next step after reviewing any errors. Next is bulk mode. In bulk mode, you will execute all steps 1 to 12 without pausing. Our next tool is Deploy Manager Console. From ITSM 1805 and later version, you can utilize the Deploy Manager Console to create a deployment package to migrate custom and overlay AR object between the two systems. If you want to use and migrate only handpicked CMDB customization related to the classes or attribute changes, then you will use the deployment console to migrate this customization from your source to your target system. Next is Auto Reconciliation Utility. This utility is part of Workflow Migration Utility. Once your AR and CMDB objects are imported, you will run the Auto Recon utility. You will run this utility for each AR object such as the forms, filters, active link, or menus. Auto reconciliation will generate a report with list of objects to reconcile. This is where you will choose to perform the three-way reconciliation. Another tool to migrate customization is Developer Studio. You will utilize Developer Studio to migrate AR custom objects and customization related to forms and workflow. Prior migrating or exporting the AR system object, use Developer Studio to convert overlays into granular overlay. While importing customization on out-of-the-box form, make sure you are importing only the overlays option. You need to remove the base object to avoid overwriting newer definition with the older version of the base. Using Developer Studio, you will also perform manual three-way reconciliation where you will compare your overlaid workflow with based object between your source and target system. Here are the detailed steps on running the three-way reconciliation. First, you will use the XML file generated from your AutoRecon utility and copy that to your Developer Studio workspace. Then you will locate the recon application under which you will find the object to reconcile. You will have to double click on Object to Reconcile to view the list of objects that require manual three-way reconciliation. You will find detailed steps and execution details under BMC documentation mentioned in the reference slide at the end of the session. Our last topic is on best practices in project planning documentation. The first document is implementation plan. This document should include details on the deployment work that includes code updates, workflow customization, integration, configuration, your custom plugin or Java codes, any custom AI jobs, and any related information for your deployment work. Next is the data migration plan. In this plan, you need to add details related to your data volume and your database size. Investigate and document any custom forms or field update which you will add to the migration pack. Lastly is project plan template. You will use this document to define a project plan that includes the tasks needed for the different phases of your migration project. In this, you will also document the different tasks that you will perform in various stages. Use this document to list the tasks to create support tickets or track the implementation activity. BMC highly recommend preparing this documentation as best practice, which will help to assess and define the scope of work for your migration project. Make sure the information in this document will help you plan your implementation and data migration activity. Now that we have covered details on handling the migration pack, recommendation on migration project tasks, tools which you can use for migration, let's see on how you will utilize these for preparing your target system as part of the migration checklist. The first stage includes migrating customization. Take the target system vanilla backup as golden backup 1. Ensure your target system is running in admin only mode and migrate your customization and base configuration. Review the change freeze requirement. Here we recommend to apply a freeze on your source system, but if it is not possible, then document and track any customization changes until your emulated cutover event. Post-migration customization, shut down your target system. Our next stage is export import. Using the HDM tool, the first pack you will run is a delete data where you will execute the clear down scripts. Take another database copy here and overwrite this with your golden database backup. Once your migration pack is configured and data mapping is handled, export the data from your source while using HDM and import it to your target system. Our next stage is post-migration activity. Based on the application type, you will execute the required post-migration scripts and data update scripts as we saw part of the application pack. You will need to run the license assessment and conversion utility. This utility is actually going to generate an Excel report about your license compliance, and this will help you decide on the required bundle licenses you should purchase. Once the licenses are handled, you will perform your first unit testing to identify any data or functional issue. You will also attempt to fix them in this stage. Once your initial unit testing is done, you are ready for emulated cutover 1. Here you will perform delta data, that is your incremental data migration. Again, you will need to run the license conversion utility for the delta data. You will then again run another unit testing, applying any fixes for issues located and get the system for UAT sign off. You will have to rerun these steps multiple times during the project execution. Our last stage before go live is emulative cutover. Here we recommend to put a freeze on your source system. You will then migrate any final customization pack and perform reconciliation. Post that, you will perform the final testing. On your go live, you will run the final Delta data migration and conclude to a successful go live. As we are approaching towards the end of our session, let's review the processes or tasks that you must restrict when performing the data migration. So while migrating the AR system data, do not create or modify as well as delete any object from the first emulated cutover period until your unit testing to go live. This will ensure that the system that goes live is identical to the system that is tested. When you shut down the ITSM on target, enable the admin only mode so that when you start the system, it's always run in admin operation only. SLM and approval data migrations are supported with full migration only. So try to avoid creating new approval types in the production environment directly. If you are migrating many service targets, then you could take a long time to build and impact the cutover window. Hence, we recommend you should build the service target before migration and include the service target in the golden backup. Lastly, always freeze the archive process during migration until you go live. You can find more details on the recommendation in the mentioned document list. Here is a summary on top key takeaways on the topics we covered today. We discussed recommendation on data mapping and application migration pack. We saw details like how to always validate migration pack linked to the correct data discovery and how you will always review and address any data mapping issues in order to avoid any data loss. We also saw a list on best practices on system and data discovery configuration. We reviewed different tools and processes you can use to migrate your AR and CMDB specific customization. Lastly, in the end, we reviewed the detailed steps to follow as part of your migration checklist, followed by what list of tasks you should avoid when you are actually running the migration task. Here are linked to some of the common documentation on the topic we covered today. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much.